In this video, we will create the truck bed for the T9 car, but it will be an adaptive truck bed that will adapt from the back of the passenger section for the car. So we've already gone in and created this back connector piece right here, and we're going to create the truck bed that's going to be adaptive to the back of this. So we are going to go ahead and go to create, and I'm going to call this new truck bed, and I'm going to say OK. I'm going to click on this back surface, click on my pencil. It's going to rotate around on me, so I'm going to go ahead and have to kind of flip around to the back here. I like using my view cube to flip as opposed to the free rotate, and we're going to come down here and we're going to click on the back surface of the car. I'm going to go ahead and flip around to the back, and I'm going to go to project geometry, and we're going to project the geometry of this surface. And I also want to make sure I'm projecting the geometry of the connector piece in the back that we made. So I want to make sure I get all of this in here. So I'm going to right click and say OK, and let's go ahead and go to finish sketch. And I want to go to extrude, and there's two surfaces we want to extrude. We want to extrude this and this. And as that pops out, we're going to go to distance and go down to 2. And what I want to choose is we want to choose the furthest piece, the furthest surface, excuse me, out from the passenger section of the connector piece that we made earlier. So we're going to click here, and you're going to notice that that's going to come all the way out here to this surface. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. And we've brought this out, and we still have this piece in here that we can't really see, and we need to make this rectangular part go back into the object. So we're going to go up to our pencil, and we're going to just click on this surface right here, and we're going to project the geometry of the rectangle in the middle, and click, and we're going to say finish sketch. And I'm going to go to extrude, and we want to go to 2, and we're trying to go inside the object, and I can't really see the surface from this angle. So sometimes using this corner of your view cube makes things easier. So when I come into this surface now, and from this view I can see that back surface we want this to come into. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So what we've been able to do is create the outer surface, and we've been able to fill in that cavity with the surface like this. So we're going to go ahead and go to our pencil and click on our outside edge, and we're going to project the geometry of all of our surfaces, and we're going to go to finish sketch, and I'm going to go to extrude, and we want to choose everything. So as we drag out, we're just going to kind of drag out here to the side. Let's go to a side view and make it real easy to see. And I don't know how far out we want to go here. Let's go about, I don't know, 4.3 is about fine for now. Let's go to 4.3 and hit enter. And I'm going to go to return up here at the top. You know, we've been able to create this back piece, but what if we have ourselves a size, a width constraint or a length constraint from the front to the back? Let's check out what the distance is from the front to the back. So let's go up to tools, and we're going to go to distance, and I'm going to click on this point. So I'm going to kind of zoom in. I'm going to get the point right here. I should be able to get this little kind of gold point when I come in. So get to where we see that. There's that gold point, and I'm going to come all the way back here to the back and zoom into the back until I get that gold point. And I have 10.92. You know, this car is not really supposed to be almost a foot long. So I'm going to get out of this X, and I'm going to double click on the back and come down to extrusion 3. I'm going to right click and go to edit feature, and I'm going to drag this back until it's about, I don't know, let's say about 3.6. And I'm going to leave it right about there. Now we can go in and change this and modify it as we wish. We can, change some dimensions on the front end even to shorten it up. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and create the truck bed surface back here in the back. So I'm going to go to my pencil and click on the top surface. And I'm going to come up to rectangle and go down to 1 point center. And I want to make sure I just line this up with the green dot at the back. So as I come up into here, I can say, are we going to click and drag how big of a size of a truck bed do we want? You can put in the dimensions that you wish, but I'm going to make mine about this size. I'm going to right click and say OK. And let's go to finish sketch, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the extrude button, and I want to cut. And I like going to the side view when I'm cutting through because it allows me to drag up and see how far down do I want this truck bed to go. I don't want it too close to the bottom, so I'm going to keep it about here, and I'm going to hit my check mark. I'm going to come back, and let's fill it off the inside edges a little bit. So I'm going to click on fillet, and I'm going to click on these corners, and I'm going to keep my fillet radius at 0.125. Remember, we can always go back and change these. So as I go through, I'm going to click, and I can even try to find the vertical line over here without even have to rotate. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And we've gone ahead and we've filleted off that back truck bed surface. Now I'm going to go to a side view of the object, and let's go up to view, and let's go down to wireframe with hidden edges, just to make sure, we still have plenty of room in here. So if we have to shorten up this truck bed, if I can possibly come in here to tools, and find the distance, from here, it's not going to let me choose that hidden surface. But if I can go in and find the distance from here to here, and we have to shorten this up, I still have a little bit of a gap for this truck bed. So maybe if we have to shorten this up towards the end, we can go in and change it. So let's go to return. And I'm going to go back to the View tab, and let's go down to Shaded with Edges. I'm going to flip around, and we need to put the holes on the back, but we want the holes to line up with the center points of the wheels we have up here in front, because we don't want this kind of be off balance or anything. So we're going to double click on our back end, and we're going to go to our pencil, and we are going to click on the side of our object here. And one of the things we want to do is we're going to go to Project Geometry, and I want to project the geometry of the center point of that line. And somewhere along here, you can see down here is where that line would be. We have to create like a point along here. So I'm going to go to Point, and I want to click along here, and you can see that black dotted line show up. I'm just going to click somewhere on this black dotted line about right here. And just to make sure we have these horizontally aligned, we're going to click on our horizontal constraint, and we're going to click on our point, and we're going to come over here and click on this point. And now we have a horizontal constraint. These are now horizontally lined up. Let's right click and say OK. Let's go to Finish Sketch. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up to the Hole command. And automatically it's going to see that hole. So what we want to do is we're going to actually place the hole depth and the hole diameter, but we're going to link that from an existing part. So one of the things we want to do is we're just going to go to Cancel, and I want to go up to Manage and go to Parameters, and we're going to go to Link. And I want to go to Wheel Axle, and we're going to go to Open. And as I scroll down through here, you remember before in other videos we had hole diameter we wanted. Click on hole diameter, it'll turn green, and then hole depth, and we're going to say OK. And I'm going to go to Done. So now once again, let's go back into 3D model, and let's go to hole. And the hole diameter, all I have to do is type hole, it's case sensitive, hole, DIA, and then up here at the top, I'm going to type hole depth. And now we have the exact same hole diameter and the exact same hole depth as what we saw down here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to OK. Now one thing we might need to do with this hole over here, if I can click on this little side thing, we have that point. Let's right click and go up to Edit Sketch, and I did not place a dimension from the back in. So let's go to Dimension, and let's go from here from the back, and let's come down. And we might want to change the dimensions whenever we want to, but I could say I'm just going to put in 1 and hit Enter, and we can move the location dimensions of that hole along the other side. So what I want to do now is we have to place for ourselves a work plane that is a midplane between two planes. So let's go to Plane, and let's go down to midplane between two planes and click on one side, and we're going to go to the exact opposite side and click, and we're going to come up to Mirror, and we want to mirror this hole and our mirror plane. If I scroll down as work plane 4 and say OK, I'm going to right click on work plane 4 and go to Visibility. We now have for ourselves the truck bed. We have these holes in the back, and one thing we're going to need to do is change this now to the same color as our other parts. So if we double click on the part, we can see that this is Cherry Natural Low Gloss. So I'm going to go to Return, double click on our back end, go to Default, scroll up, Cherry Natural Low Gloss, and we're going to go ahead and say Return. Now I do not want the visibility of this work plane back here, so let's right click on the work plane and go to Visibility and take that away. And you're going to notice we have for ourselves two cavities here, so we still have this cavity in here. This will make a little bit more sense once we get done with this. Remember, we can still shorten up this bed. Now this does look like a ridiculously long car, so we can always go back and edit what we have. So that's kind of the point of learning how to do things this way, is we can always go back and do some editing. So let's go up to Assemble, and we're going to go to Place, and we're going to go ahead and place our new wheel assembly. We're going to say Open, and I'm going to click twice, and I'm going to teach you a new way to place these on the object. So we're going to teach you some joints. So I'm going to go up to Joint, and there's a thing right here you can do where it says Automatic. You do something known as a rotational joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. You have to do the wheel first, since the wheel is what's going to be rotating around the object. So that's the one you want to make sure you do first. Anyway, let's right click and go to Cancel real quick. I need to move this part out a little bit so I can actually see the surface of it. So I'm going to go to Joint, and I'm going to go down to Rotational, and I'm going to zoom in, and this surface it's going to touch is this surface, and that green dot means that's what it's going to rotate around. I'm going to rotate around, come into this surface. I want this surface and that green dot. And you'll notice what will happen is that's going to come in and that's going to spin. If I hit my green check mark and get out of it, notice that's automatically constrained it. You know, on our front video, we did axis to axis, face to face. Now with the rotational one, we can just do things this way. Click on our wheel subassembly. I'm going to rotate this around to where it's facing the car. I'm going to right click and say OK. I'm going to go to joint. I'm going to go down to rotational. I'm going to come into here, click on this back surface, come around to our other object, make sure we're in the front. That green dot's at the front. That rotates now. We're going to hit our check mark. So now that's going to rotate. So with our object that we have, let's say for instance we did want to shorten this up a little bit. So I'm going to double click on our object because this obviously does look a little on the long side. So we're going to go back to our extrusion 3 here, and I'm going to go to edit feature, and I'm going to take, you know, a little bit off of this. I'm going to come into here and I'm going to go to, let's say 2.9, and let's see what that does. We're going to say OK, and let's go to return. That actually shifted for us. Now one of the things we want to make sure that we can do is if I can come up to view and I go to visual style, wireframe with hidden edges. You know, one of our biggest issues was not getting too close to this, but it does look like something that we did. It does look like our back end now has changed, so that makes a big difference. Let's go to shaded with edges. So it looks like our original truck bed did not want to stay in the same spot because we didn't dimension the back of the bed in. So one thing I can do is I'm going to go to undo a couple times, and let's go back and keep that truck bed, and let's find that extrusion, and let's go to edit sketch in here. And you know, I didn't really do much with the size of this, and I didn't place a dimension on the back. I just kind of haphazardly placed this in. So I'm going to click into here and let's come out. And this is always going to have to be, let's say 0.3 off the back. And let's say our truck bed depth from here to here is going to be 2. So I'm going to go ahead and go to finish sketch. So I have changed that truck bed depth just a little bit. So now what we can do when we go into this extrusion 3 back here at the back, if I go to edit feature and now I go in and I say, you know, I want that to be 2.9, it should move with the object. So you can see now it actually moved in with us. So let's go to a side view. So this is part of learning how to edit parts. You know, when things don't always shift the way you want them to, you can always come in and edit. You know, we still got a little bit of room in here. So let's go ahead and double click on our back end, and let's come in into our extrusion, and we're going to, no, not our extrusion 4, excuse me, our extrusion 3, and we're going to go to edit feature, and I got 2.9. Let's go in here and change this to 2.5. And that looks like that goes right into it. We don't want that. So let's go into 2.7 and see how that's going to look. So let's go ahead and go to OK. And we still have a little bit of room. So let's come up to extrusion 3 and let's try that again. It looked like it ran right into it. So let's go into 2.5 and hit enter. And it looks like we do have a little bit of a gap. We can keep that. And let's go to return. Visual style, shaded with edges. We've done some stuff off of the back here. And it looks like we have a little bit of a groove up here at the top that we didn't project completely at the beginning. That's no big deal. We can always go in and change that. So as we come into here, you can see that we have this not lining up. So let's go ahead and let's see if we can go in and fix that. So I'm going to double click on our back end. And remember, the very first thing that we did was extrude off of this sketch that we made, you know, this adaptive sketch. So I'm going to right click and go to edit sketch, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to see if I can project the geometry up here at the top of this and see if I can get these two things to be collinear constraint. This and this need to be collinear, and it does not want to move for me. So one thing we can also do, since this happened, is, you know, we can go into project geometry and I can go ahead and project these outside edges. Now we kind of had a little bit of this problem before, and I'm kind of glad this is happening because it's a way to go in and learn how to edit. So as I'm in here, I'm going to say OK, and I'm not going to go to finish sketch yet. I tell you what, let's go ahead and go to finish sketch so I can actually see this back. Now if I come into extrude, it's going to tell me that I need to create a 2D sketch, and it's not seeing the geometry that I just moved. So what I'd have to do is go in here and go to my surface and come back here on this surface and draw a new sketch and slice my graphics, and I need to come in and go to project geometry off the back and then get both of these. So what I'll do is I'll come into here and I'm just going to get both of these things right here. So here to here, and I'm going to come out to here. So I'm going to go to finish sketch. So now what I should be able to do is go to extrude, and it's going to see that little thin thing. So if I flip the direction and I come back here, and the hard part of this is the fact is that if I go to 2 and I flip my back surface, it's going to go over the top of that object. You know, one thing I can't always do is just come into here and say, you know, I'm going to project the geometry of that surface underneath here. just going to come over here on the top. You know, if I had to go over on the top just to make this thing line up, it's no big deal. So once I'm done with this, I can come in to go to Finish Sketch, go to Extrude, say Cut, and I'm just going to go the distance 2 is going to come down and be the bottom of that other surface I can see right there, and say OK, and I just have another cut. What I've been able to do from that, though, is now I can see that edge up there on the top. I'd have to do the exact same thing on the bottom. For the sake of time, I won't do that. But what you're going to notice is, look, I have the groove cut in the side perfectly. We have for ourselves the passenger section. We have ourselves a truck bed. And we've been able to do all of this completely adaptive with the other parts. So if we look over at our browser bar, look at how many adaptive parts we have. And the only thing that we don't have 100% adaptive to everything is our wheels that we made. So now that we've made all of the parts with the exception of the passenger base, which fits in here, and the windshield, we have our parts pretty much the bare bones skeleton of the part of the car made. And you can see how this looks like an Automoblocks car. We've been able to go in and make parts and make them adaptive. We have not placed a ton of numeric constraints. We've done a lot of just adaptive original sketch geometry. So this looks pretty cool. So this has been how to go in and create the truck bed from an adaptive passenger section.